Hey everyone, it's Kelly from Silly Quilting Co. I hope you're doing great today. I just wanted to talk to you really quickly about Oh Golly and OG. We had a lovely live Zoom session last night, Ruler 101, where a bunch of people were there and we talked about ruler quilting, and it was great. It was nice to get back on the horse of doing lives again. We'll be doing another one, so keep an eye out because we'll be doing another one in the not too distant future. There were a lot of people that couldn't make it that night because it was kind of short notice, but yeah. So I did want to talk to you about one of the questions that was posed last night, and it was about our rulers Oh Golly and OG. One of my customers was having a problem with lining up the second row or the second set of rows on her quilt. They weren't lining up and those circles weren't lining up. So I thought, if she's mentioned it, there's probably others that are having the same problem. And I know that a lot of you have already bought Oh Golly and OG, and I know a lot of you are maybe thinking about it for getting your holiday quilts done really fast because it is one of our newer overall design rulers. So I thought I'd really quickly come on here and do this video and explain how to get those perfect lineups of those arcs on your quilt. So just a quick showing here, hopefully it shows up, but you can see how we've got our circles that line up at the bottom and top of each of these, and that's what we want, and we want to make sure that they do that. So this video is going to explain how to do that. And I did also want to talk about, this is the design if you do it across your quilt one way, but just by turning the design and doing it the opposite direction, so you can still stitch it left to right, but you would turn your quilt to have it a little bit different. You can end up with quite a different design. So just a little reminder when you're doing your designs to try them left and right and forward and back to kind of see what's going to work best for the quilt that you're working on and what the overall desired look of what you're trying to achieve. Okay, so I hope you enjoy this video. So we're going to start today just by showing you the size difference of Oh Golly and OG. The dimensions are actually listed on our website, but sometimes visual works better. So this is our OG ruler and this is Oh Golly. So you can see that there is a size difference for sure in those two rulers. Both are available in 1/4 and 1/8, and you can use both on your long arm or domestic. Just make sure you have the right thickness for the rulers. But I received a question regarding how to go from one row to the next. So there's a previous video explaining the basics of Oh Golly and OG, but I'm going to go into this a little bit more detailed just to show you how to go to your next row. So for example, you've got this on a quilt and you want to repeat your design over and over again on a quilt on different rows. To start, I've got my one row or one line marked, and that's really all you need is the one line marked, because we're going to use the marking lines on the ruler to do our next rows. I'm just going to show you with Oh Golly. All of the same principles apply to OG. So if you've got one or the other or both, you can do the same thing. So I'm going to bring up my thread on my line, and that's going to help keep the back of my quilt a little bit neater, if I can get it up. There we go. And just lock my stitches, and I'm going to bring that down again, and then I'm going to lift my ruler foot up, slide my ruler in, making sure I'm kind of in the biggest opening I can to bring my ruler foot back down, and then sliding it back so that it nests right in that little notch there, and then turning my ruler so that the main center, or this line, the horizontal center line, is on the mark line on the quilt. So just as a refresher, we want to make sure we go right into the corner, take that extra stitch, and then follow this around, and again, right into the corner, and around, and back to this edge here. So I'm just going to hold my ruler tight, back across, and then back down again, and stop there. So for Oh Golly, for this design, we're just going to rotate it and end up lining this back up again on the straight line that we marked. That's going to be our first reference line. Stop there just to move my hands and shift them. You want to kind of keep this part, a finger on these two little tabs if you can, especially if you're using the 1/8 rulers. And then back to the outside. I'm going to, at this point, lift my ruler foot, slide my ruler out, and I'm going to turn Oh Golly and use this flat edge that is the little indentation area here on Golly. So I'm going to line that up, and there's a line that lines up with your needle, so that goes straight across. That's going to keep us lined up so that we're going vertically the same by using our horizontal line to keep us at 90 degrees. And I'm going to stitch straight up. And now what I want to do is I want to do the same thing. So I ended here, and I want to do the same thing, but what I want is I want my, let me bring that back down. I want my circles here to match up. So I need to actually slide this ruler down and around, but I want to also slide it over so that my needle is in alignment with the line that goes through the word O on Oh Golly. And there's a line there that will line up on the line I just stitched. So that's the one reference point. The other is that I want to look along here, the word underneath the word Oh Golly. There's a horizontal line, and I want that to match up with the top of this line here, of the row of the peak. I want that line to match up with the peak of the dome that I just stitched, and that should keep you nice and square. So you're only starting to stitch half again when you're doing this design. And I'm going to stop there. Then I'm going to rotate my ruler again, and then I'm going to do a full design. But what I want to do is I want to make sure there's a second line here, not the one in line with my needle, but one over. That line there, I want to make sure is lined up. Let's just bring that in a little. So the line that is beside the one that's in line with my needle, I want that to be on the edge of the upper dome here. And I also want to double check that now the line that's going through the maple leaf stem is matching up with the top of this here. Now, if you're finding that your lines when you come down aren't matching up, you can, things move, things shift, especially when you're working on a much larger quilt than I am today. So when you're doing that, you want to double check to make sure you've got your spacing right there. And to check to see if our spacing's right is we can use our dude, the little 1/4 inch arm. I can use that 1/4 inch arm and put it on top of the stitch line of the dome, and that will butt up right to my ruler. And if those two line up perfectly, then we're good to go. So we're going to go ahead and stitch the next row, or the next design. You can see that came right to where I needed it to be there to touch. And then I'm going to rotate my ruler again. And I've got my same lineups that I can use here to make sure I'm square. So I've got the second engraved line, not the one in line with the needle, but the second engraved line in line with the bottom part of this dome. And I've got the line that goes under Oh Golly in this case in alignment with the top of that dome. And my third check is using that 1/4 inch arm of dude, just to make sure that I'm going to end up just almost touching that or touching that. You can see that brought me in the right spot again. So now what we need to do here is, if you see, I stitched all the way over to this corner, but the trick with this is to get our next row to line up, and I'm just going to move this out of the way. To get our next row to line up, we've actually stitched over too far. So when we started our first row, we only did one section here. What we just stitched is this section here, which is double this section. And I think that's where people maybe are getting mixed up a bit. So I'm going to go back in there and show you what you should do. So I overstitched that and I ended up here. So what I need to do is I need to stitch back to the center of these 3 lines. So there's 1, 2, 3 lines by the big O in O. So I should stop when I get to that second line. I overstitch that to show you what it looks like, and the mistake that most people are making, I think. And then you want to stitch back to this line. This is theoretically going to be the end of your quilt or the edge of your quilt, so not a huge deal. If you do overstitch it and you have to stitch back, if you do a couple locking stitches, you can just pick out those couple that you missed or that you overstitched, not a big deal. But if you don't go back to the center line, it is not going to line up your next row. So I'm going to go back so that I'm in alignment with that second line there. And then I'm going to lift my ruler foot, slide my ruler out, use that corner edge again, where it's the indentation. And now I'm going to use the line that goes through the G in Oh Golly. I'm going to line that up on the flats of the row that I just did. So here and here, that's going to make sure that I stay nice and square going up. And I'm going to hold everything nice and tight. Come straight up. So you can see there now how I overstitched by 1/4 of an inch. Lift my ruler foot, slide my ruler back under, and now I am going to use the line that is in line with my needle on the straight up stitch line that I just created. And I can also do a double check because now I want to come down and I want to match these going the other way. I want the line that's going through the stem of the maple leaf to match up with the peak of the row below. And again, I can do a quick double check if I want by using that 1/4 inch arm of dude. And then go ahead and stitch my next row. Rotate my ruler, line everything up this way, make sure that I'm lined up on the peaks here. So I've got a couple ways to line up. Again, the tried and true method is to check with my dude to make sure that I'm going to match up at the peak of that. And I've reached the end again, so I'm going to lift my ruler foot. I'm going to show you that one more time. I'm just going to stitch this back up again. Lift my ruler foot. This one will be a little faster. Drop my ruler foot. I'm going to stitch or move my ruler all the way to the center so that the line through O is lined up on there, on the line I just stitched. And the needle is in alignment with where I am. Then I'm going to start stitching there. And back over. And same thing, stitch it again. Double check my line. Again, if I want to make sure I'm perfect, I want to use my dude. And now remembering when I come back this way that I'm only stitching 1/4 of an inch. Remembering when I come back this way that I'm only stitching to that line. I'm not stitching past. And then I'll just stitch to my line there, lifting my ruler foot and sliding that out, and then I can do the next one. So I think that you understand now. And Oh Golly is, that's the smaller of the two rulers. And OG works exactly the same way. So thanks so much for checking this video out. I hope you enjoyed it. Pretty quick one, just explaining how to use Oh Golly and OG. I did, as I said in the video, only showed you with Oh Golly, but the premise is exactly the same for OG. It's just a little bit larger, so it will help you get your quilts done quicker. But if you're working on a smaller domestic machine, I would recommend to go with the Oh Golly, just because it's a little easier to handle. So if you have any questions, please let me know in the comments down below. There is no word of the week for this video. This is not a typical video. It was kind of an extra video this week. There will be another video coming out with the word of the week, but I do appreciate your comments and any questions you have. If you have any questions on any of our products or are having trouble using it, please let me know. I'd be happy to do up a video, or at least we'll maybe chat on the phone about how we can remedy any problem you're having. Thanks so much. Have an amazing day.